Hello folks, the old deplorable basket case here. So Stefan Radev, who always leaves such great comments, has commented again on my earlier video, the lesson to be learned from Luxembourg in World War II. Now, if you haven't seen the video, the lesson I hope you will learn is that there are times you need to not think about what's good or bad for you, what's the benefit. You need to stand and fight and refuse to give an inch. And I make the point that if Luxembourg had done that in 1940, it could have made a big difference in how the Second World War turned out. Stefan Radev comments, an hour during case yellow. Hopefully I got the color right. Yeah, I think you're right, but I often get the color confused myself. Wouldn't mean much, really. Less than 1,000, and half of them actually policemen. He's referring here to the actual armed forces of Luxembourg. Even the defensive line they prepared couldn't have helped. Even the couple of French divisions didn't do any good. Okay, Luxembourg was actually overrun by German reconnaissance forces. These were very lightly armed troops. Many of them were literally riding bicycles. Not the heavily armed German troops we're used to thinking of. No artillery, no tanks. Could the armed forces of Luxembourg have held off those lightly armed troops? Yeah, they probably could have. Luxembourg is very good defensive terrain. In fact, in 1944, 37 Luxembourg partisans held off an entire SS battalion. Incidentally, that action had a big effect in how Operation Wacht am Rhein worked out, better known as the Battle of the Bulge. So you see, Luxembourg learned the lesson from Luxembourg in World War II. Now, the reconnaissance forces in the Wehrmacht in that time and place were moving on average 1 hour ahead of the actual combat force. So I said 1 hour. That number was not pulled out of a hat. Could Luxembourg have held out against the actual German combat forces? No. The tanks and artillery and just outnumbered by too many. They could not have held out against the entire German army. But the reconnaissance forces, especially in the Wehrmacht of the time period, are important not just for finding things out, where the enemy is, what the terrain is like. They're also important for taking control of important points. At many times during the Battle of France, Allied troops tried to take up a defensive position only to find out too late that German reconnaissance forces had taken control of them literally just before they got there. You mentioned the French divisions that didn't do any good. They didn't do much good because they were caught completely by surprise. So, if Luxembourg had held German forces up for 1 hour and transmitted a warning, that would have been 1 hour, and that would have been a warning at a time and a place, a very specific time and a very specific place that could have made a very big difference. However, your point is quite intriguing and may suit to Denmark and Norway, for example. That is very unfair to Norway. That is very unfair to Norway. The Norwegians fought very hard. In fact, the final surrender of Norwegian armed forces, they only surrendered because they had no ammunition. They ran out. They fought to the last bullet, and then they surrendered. Denmark. Yeah, I think it's a pretty good point to make for Denmark. If the Danes had stood and fought, they could have made a huge difference in the Norwegian campaign. The only reason the Germans were able to did as well as they did in Norway is because of the Luftwaffe. Now, they could only send air troops to Norway through airfields in Denmark. If the Danes had fought on longer, if they had destroyed their own airfields, for example, the things they could have done, yeah, that could have made a huge difference. Interesting comparison are Yugoslavia and Bulgaria from the period 2, occupation or collaboration with the Germans in 40. I'm not sure what you mean by comparison there. I'm trying to find some pithy way to end this, and I can't think of anything. Thank you for commenting, Stefan Radev. It's always great to have a talk with you. Everyone who's watching this, thank you for watching. I hope you've enjoyed this. And please comment below with anything you had to say. I'd like to know what you think. And have a good day, and God bless.